quilting friend, it's Carolina Moore, your favorite sewing and quilting YouTuber here, and today we're doing something a little bit different. This is something that's been on my heart for a little while, and I wanted to talk to you about it. So I hope that you will leave me a comment. Let me know what you think about this kind of video. Let me know if this is something you want to see more of, because getting to talk directly to you is something that I don't really do that often, and I think I'd like to do that a little more. So let's dive into today's topic, and today's topic is about the value of a quilt. So the value of a quilt, you can actually take a quilt and you can go have it appraised, and they will tell you how much that quilt is worth. And sometimes if you go to quilt shows or consignment shops, you'll actually see a price tag on a quilt. If you go onto Etsy, you'll see quilts for sale. So there's definitely like a dollar value to a quilt. But I'm going to argue that the value of a quilt can't necessarily be expressed in dollars. And I want to share that with a story that a friend of mine told me. So a friend of mine told me about a friend of hers that we're going to call Sarah. And Sarah was a new quilter. Sarah entered her quilt, her first quilt that she made. And I think it was like a turning 20 or like a yellow brick road quilt, like a pretty standard kind of like first quilt for a quilter to make. And she entered this first quilt that she'd ever made into a quilt show because she was so proud of it, as she should be. First quilts are incredible. They're like first kisses. You never get a second first kiss. You never get a second first quilt. So first quilt's incredible. So she entered this quilt, her first quilt, into a quilt show because she was so proud of it. And on the day of the quilt show, now those of you who've entered a quilt in a quilt show before know that you drop off your quilt several days, even like a week ahead of time, so they have time to hang all the quilts and get everything set up. So on the day of the show, she gets to the show and she wants to see her quilt, and she walks in and she goes and she's looking through the aisles and she finds her quilt, and there's like a bunch of people standing like there. But it turns out that all the people standing there are looking at the quilt over on one side, because the quilt on the other side of hers was an award-winning quilt. Had the big old blue ribbon on there, and everyone was in awe, admiring this quilt. Probably had a bunch of hand applique, probably had really intense free motion quilting on it, probably it was custom quilted, who knows, like this is an award-winning quilt right next to her very first quilt. And Sarah, our friend Sarah, was crushed, like totally depleted, because there is her first quilt and she feels like her quilt right there doesn't belong next to this award-winning quilt. She feels like her quilt is going to get no attention and no love because this blue ribbon quilt is going to take all of the love from this space, and it's all going to go right there, and none of it's going to go on her quilt. And she felt unworthy, like she didn't belong there, and she lost some of her heart for quilting in that moment. And I wish that I had been there. I wish that I'd been standing right next to Sarah, because to me, none of that is right. Here's the thing. Both of those quilts were made with love. Both of those quilts were made with the maker's skill. Her hands, or his hands, or their hands put their skill into the fabric and came out with something that really, at the end of the day, serves the exact same purpose. Both of these quilts will keep someone warm. Sarah's quilt, blue ribbon quilt, they're both going to keep someone warm. And I can tell you from decades of quilt making and quilt gifting that when I gift someone a quilt, they don't look at it and say, well, did it win a ribbon? They look at it and say, did you make this? Did you make this for me? Because that's what's in a quilt. It's the love that gets put in the quilt. It's not, oh, I made this in 20 hours, or oh, this took me 6 months to make. Are quilts that take 6 months to make incredible? Absolutely. Are quilts that win blue ribbons pretty awesome? Sure. And as someone who's won awards at a quilt show, it feels incredible to win an award at a quilt show. But just having your quilt hanging there Gosh, just having your quilt finished, like that is an accomplishment in itself. So if I was standing there next to Sarah, I would say, your quilt is no less worthy. And you've probably seen the expression somewhere before of never judge your beginning by someone else's middle. I bet you that that blue ribbon winning quilter still looks back fondly at their first quilt. And I bet that that blue ribbon quilter, as a blue ribbon quilter myself, I never entered my first quilt in a quilt show. It was over a decade of quilting before I had the pride or I guess I put the fear aside to be able to have my quilt in a quilt show and be judged. So Sarah's already ahead of the game there. And that's what I want to tell you, that it's cool to win ribbons. Not gonna lie, it is absolutely cool to win a ribbon. But quilts aren't made to win ribbons. Quilts are made as an expression of the maker's hands and as a way for us to gift a tangible form of love. So leave your comments as to why you quilt, and I bet you that none of those comments are going to be about winning ribbons, although if that's your reason, totally valid as well. Well, friends, that's it for today. Let me know if you enjoyed this video. Give it a thumbs up. I would love to see your comments down below. I'm looking for those. If you're new around here, hit that subscribe button. I have lots and lots of quilting videos that I love to share, and I'd love for you to be part of this quilting YouTube community. Thanks so much, my friends, and I will see you right here real soon. Bye for now.